Hi guys, today's video is going to be about industry stuff. I'm really pleased that you found the last one useful, and hopefully you'll find this one useful as well. This will help both first years and second years, hopefully, because the stuff that I'm going to be covering today can apply to both the second year exam in the music industry module and to the first years across a couple of modules, namely Assassin's Creed 3 and Straight Outta Compton as well. You might also be able to talk about some of this stuff with Late Night Women's Hour, but I'm going to do a whole separate lesson dedicated to Late Night Women's Hour because I know you love it so much. Okay, so what I'm going to do is break down some of the keywords essentially, and we'll talk a little bit about how they apply, but we'll just generally be talking about the keywords, and you guys can use the master sheets to catch you up. There's a PowerPoint in the VLE that I'll put a link to in the bio bit of this video. If you open it up and kind of read along, it'll help you out to understand what I'm talking about here. So there are 6 words that I'm going to cover today. The first one we're going to be looking at is vertical integration. So vertical integration is essentially where one company owns different parts of the production process. So if we think about like a film company might own the actual production company. I can't believe I'm getting attacked by cats like while I'm trying to do this. So a film company will own like the production company at the top. So they'll own like all the cameras and everything that kind of goes with that, and there'll be a company like Legendary Pictures who'll kind of make a film or will make like a TV show or something like that. Then the next step down is also owned by the same company. So they might also own like a TV studio where they can take their cameras and they can go and shoot in their own studio. After that, when it's all finished, when they've finished making the program, they might also own like a television channel where they can put their own programs on their own TV channel. So they own different steps in the production process. If it's a film company, they might also own like the marketing company that will promote their own program. They might own some magazines so they can promote their own programs as well. And they might also own like a lorry company that can kind of move like film marketing materials across the world, essentially across the country or across the world. Now this is called vertical integration because it's like different steps of the production process, all owned by the same company. Now there's a lot of benefits to this, obviously. The first one is that you have total control over everything that you do. And when you have total control, what it means is it's also cheaper. So you don't actually have to like pay different companies. Imagine if you'd made a film and then you had to pay like a lorry company to move the films across the globe, or if you had to pay a marketing company to do all the marketing for you. If you are a vertically integrated company, you don't have to do any of that, so you save a lot of money in the long run. Now if you like know how shiny my screen is, you can see like a little diagram of vertical integration here. So at the top we've got the raw materials. So this company, for example, owns like this is obviously like a manufacturing company, but this company here owns the means to like mine their own raw materials. So say they mine gold, for example, then they have a manufacturing plant where they can take that gold and turn it into rings. Then they have a distribution company where they can put all the rings in a lorry and move them around. They will also own like shops as well, so they can sell it in their own shops. And they might also have an insurance company that they own that'll kind of do after sales care. So if your ring breaks, they can kind of fix it for you. On the flip side of that, there's also horizontal integration. And horizontal integration is where one company owns a lot of like the same type of company. And it's nice and easy to explain this one. So if you think about Disney, they now own Pixar. So that's horizontal integration. They buy different like companies across the same thing. Another good example is the company that owns Lidl also owns Morrison's, and they kind of go across like this. River Island, Topshop, Topman, these are all kind of the same, owned by the same company. Now there's a benefit to this as well. It just means you have more like industry control. Essentially you can spread like you like expand your company outwards, and you can just own lots and lots of assets, so you end up making a lot more money. It's a lot more financially stable, because obviously the bigger your company is, the less likely it is to go bust, because once you're kind of like £1 billion or $1 billion company, it's very unlikely you're going to lose all of that money. So there's a lot of benefits to being vertically integrated as well. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this, but Ubisoft, the company that actually makes like Assassin's Creed, they have like a horizontally integrated company, because as you can see, they own like a huge amount of different companies essentially. Look at all the different like factions of Ubisoft. So Ubisoft Berlin, Bordeaux, Bucharest, Chengdu in China, Halifax, Kiev, Leamington, Milan, they own all of them companies. They're all separate companies, but they're all owned by the same one, and they all do the same thing. Okay, so another word that you guys need to be aware of is globalization. Again, this is nice and easy for us to explain. Globalization is essentially where a company becomes so big it branches out across all three of the big markets in the world. Now, there are considered to be three big markets, like I've just said, and these are North America, Japan, and Europe. So if you can get a product into North America, Japan, and Europe, then you can be considered a global company. If you think about companies like McDonald's and KFC and places like that, they are definitely global companies because they are every single place that you go, you'll see them. You can eat a McDonald's and look at the pyramids in Egypt, or you can eat a McDonald's and be like 100 meters away from the Colosseum in Rome. We also have a McDonald's at Wolverstone, right near the college. So it's a global company because it's basically everywhere. Now, games companies find this a lot easier these days as well, especially with the rise of digitalization, because digitalization means that everything has the potential to become global. If you think about it, if a PlayStation is global, then the games that are released on it are also global. You can get hold of basically any game and download it onto any PlayStation around the world. So every single game has the potential to be global. Now, Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation is definitely global because it spreads out across three different games consoles: the PS Vita, the PS3, and the Xbox 360, and it's also part of the Assassin's Creed franchise, which is a massive global franchise. So it's definitely considered a global kind of game. Now, this process of everything becoming digital has a name of its own, and it's a name you need to be aware of. This is called convergence, and essentially, I know you guys actually have kind of covered convergence actually already, and you had a couple of problems with it when you were answering your questions in your Assassin's Creed 3 books, but essentially convergence is where basically it's where technology has made everything a lot smaller, and not physically smaller, but smaller in terms of you need less stuff. So if we think about a mobile phone, back when I was a kid, sounding very old now, when I was a kid, we had TVs and we had music television, so we had MTV, and we had mailing lists. If you wanted to find out about products or companies, we'd get literal letters through the post about them, and we had posters telling us where bands were playing, and you had to go to shops to buy things. Now I could literally do all of this stuff from this sofa that I'm stuck on. I could find out where my favorite bands are playing. I could watch videos on YouTube. I could buy things from Amazon and it'll get shipped to my house. And all of this stuff is called convergence, where all old technologies are now becoming located in one place on a smartphone essentially. PlayStations and PS Vitas have become kind of converged as well, because you can access the internet on them, so you can download games without having to leave your house and stuff. So that means it's become converged. Convergence is also good for marketing as well, because the very fact that you guys have hopefully been watching trailers for Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation on YouTube suggests that it's been converged, and that the marketing is working for it. If you Google the poster or the game box for Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, you'll be able to find it on your phone. And this, again, like I said, is a good example of convergence. Synergy is another word that you guys need to be aware of. And synergy is the working together of a few different companies. So if you think about it, when we were looking at Straight Outta Compton, Universal Studios made Straight Outta Compton, and then Beats by Dre also released some Straight Outta Compton headphones essentially. That's synergy. That's a few companies working together. If we look at Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation, if you go onto the Wikipedia page, you'll see there's about 5 different Ubisoft companies that all work together. Ubisoft Milan worked on it, Ubisoft London worked on it, and 3 other companies all got involved too. And this meant that the company itself, the game itself, was an example of synergy, of different companies working together for mutual benefit. Now, on top of all this, there are also 3 other words that you need to be aware of. I'm aware that this module is very word heavy, and this is why it's so important that you're kind of watching this video and that you are reading all the stuff on the VLE, because there is a lot of stuff on that VLE under the video games section, so make sure you check it out. But there are 3 different parts of the whole production process you could be asked about. So the first stage is called production, and just I want you to have an awareness of this. So production is just when the game was made by all of them different companies: Ubisoft Quebec, Ubisoft Milan, Ubisoft Montreal. All of these companies working together, you need to be aware of them. Because it's spread across a few different countries, this is called a multinational production. So it's been made across a few different productions, a few different countries, essentially. The next stage is called distribution. And distribution is how you get your product out there. So if you make a product and you put it in a shop, that's you distributing it. So this was distributed via a few different ways. You could go into a shop like Granger Games, RIP, or you could go into Game, for example, and buy these things, or HMV, and you could buy the physical disc. It was also digitally distributed via Steam, PlayStation Online, and Xbox Arcade. So you could go and buy any of these games by just logging onto your games console and downloading it, essentially. Digital distribution is obviously much more beneficial to your producers because it's a lot cheaper. If you think about how expensive it would be to print out a million copies of the game box, and then make a million game discs, and then put them in lorries and send them around the world and put them in shops, that's going to be much more expensive than just uploading it to Steam and just letting people download it. You don't have to do you don't have to pay anything to do that. You just upload your game to Steam and people can download it, or you upload your game to the PlayStation Store or to Xbox Arcade. It's much, much cheaper to digitally distribute things. Finally, there's circulation. And circulation is essentially how you kind of get your game around there. So you can circulate your game in a number of different ways. It's like choosing where to distribute it to, essentially. So choosing to distribute it onto the PlayStation Store, that's a good example of circulation. Choosing to put it in the 3 big markets, North America, Europe, and Japan, that again is good circulation. You can look at circulation by things like how you are targeting different audiences. So when you talk about how things have been circulated, you could say that having a female protagonist for the first time is a certain type of circulation. Having the game released on PS Vita, that increases circulation, and it's a whole process, essentially. There's lots of stuff on the PowerPoint that I've uploaded to the VLE for you to have a look at there, rather than me kind of trying to explain it to you now. As a final kind of closing statement, I guess you could also be asked about 2 theorists. Luckily, these theorists work together, so we'll consider them one theorist. But you could be asked about theorists in your Assassin's Creed 3 or your straight out of Compton question. Curran and Seaton are the guys you need to be aware of. Now, these guys are nice and easy. It's like a common sense kind of theory. So essentially what they say is that the media today is owned by a small group of companies. So when we look at the film industry, there's only 6 companies that run the majority of the film industry. 99% of it is owned by these 6 companies. Companies like Universal, Paramount, 20th Century Fox, and Disney. These are all huge companies that own basically everything. So what Curran and Seaton have said is that because these companies are so big now, they are literally just becoming soulless kind of companies that are only driven by profit. They only make films to make money. So if something works, the Marvel Studios stuff at the moment, if something works, if you make a superhero film and all of a sudden it sells 1 million seats at the box office, or it makes a £1 billion, like a lot of the Avengers films do, then obviously the natural thing to do would be to make more and more and more of them, because you keep making money. Now, Curran and Seaton argue that this essentially stops originality. So I know it's an unpopular opinion, but all of the Avengers films and all of the Marvel films are the same story. They're all from the same universe. They're all the same. Basically, everything is these big blockbuster films that are just designed to make money. It's very rare that you get any sort of originality, according to Curran and Seaton. So I know I've shown my first year's Trash Humpers, and I'll probably show my second year's Trash Humpers at some point, but that is a very original film. It's rubbish, but it is a very original film. It made no money. In fact, it lost money. Now, according to Curran and Seaton, we are losing this originality because of this big business, because of these huge companies that own essentially everything, and the fact that if you look at basically any film company, like Legendary Pictures, big film company on its own, but it's a subsidiary because it's owned by another company. These huge conglomerates are spoiling originality, according to them. Now, okay, so this video has been a lot of information. I don't want you to get all bogged down in the information. I want you to watch it a few times, make some notes, and ask any questions that you might have. I'll happily do more follow-up videos to get back to you. Keep watching the VLE, keep reading through the PowerPoints that I'm uploading on there, and good luck for your exam in a couple of weeks, in about a week's time. How frightening is that? Okay, good luck for your exam. I'm sure I'll do another video before then.